Which is known as the orchard county? Which as the garden state? Which captain of the bounty was set adrift by his mate? There's a little tightrope walking between the two places, and indeed one of the central figures in one of the poems in the book is Blondin, the great French tightrope walker who specialised in crossing Niagara Falls, bringing with him all kinds of accoutrements, a wheelbarrow. He would stop halfway across and light a little stove and cook himself an omelette. So I suppose that's a rather precarious position to be in, and perhaps it's a position that I recognise from time to time, of being between two cultures.
So this tightrope you're talking about, was it intentional when you set about to collect the poems for this book?
Well, there's very little of the intentional about the business of writing poetry, at least so far as I can see. What I try to do is to go into a poem, and one writes them, of course, poem by poem, to go into each poem, first of all, without having any sense whatsoever of where it's going to end up. So in that sense, I suppose there's a little bit of the tightrope walker's unease. In fact, it's probably most tightrope walkers would feel much more at ease. Who would like to read his or her poem on this fine occasion? It's very difficult, I think, often for those little words to carry the weight on their narrow little shoulders that's been asked of them to carry.
Now, we watched you teaching today, and there was a great emphasis on clarity, on what does the phrase exactly mean? You really pushed that on your students.
Well, indeed, because clarity, the movement towards clarity, is, I think, at the heart of the enterprise. Let's face it, confusion is what we're living with. Not being able to make sense of what's happening to us from day to day. Whereas making sense is what we're aiming for. Making sense. Now, that's a complicated matter, of course, in that many poems are difficult. Sometimes clarity, though they may be moving in that direction, isn't always what they achieve.
Certainly your own poetry has been called difficult.
Well, that's right, and that's why I bring it up, because
you beat me to it.
It's not as if I'm trying to write crossword puzzles to which one might find an answer at the back of the book or anything like that. They are meant to be equal to the difficulties which surround us. In this era of extraordinary complexity, where it's impossible to, I was going to say walk down the street, but move towards one's front door with its alarm, turn on one's television, for heaven's sake, if one's able to do it, understand even remotely what's going on under the hood of one's car, never mind understand what is happening in Afghanistan or Iraq for most of us.
So the complexity of the poem mirrors the complexity of life around us.
That's my story. That's my story.
I'm
sticking to it. Who cooked and ate an omelette midway across Niagara Falls? Where did Satanta get those magical hurley balls he ram-stammed down the throat of the blacksmith's hound? Why would a Greek philosopher of note refuse to be bound by convention, but live in a tub, from which he might overhear, as he went to rub an apple on his sleeve, the mutineers plotting to seize the Maid of the Mist, while it was still half able to forge ahead and make half a fist of crossing the Niagara Gorge? The tub in which he might light a stove and fold the beaten eggs into themselves. Who unearthed the egg trove? And who, having eaten the omelette, would marvel at how the Mounties had so quickly closed in on him, late of the orchard county, by way of the garden state?
You love the play of words, of sounds, of connections, of things that don't necessarily seem to connect, but suddenly you make connect.
Well, I think that's one of the great delights of attempting to write poems. And central, in fact, one might say, to the activity is to find those likenesses, between unlike things.
What about the use of rhyme?
Well, I think of rhyme as being intrinsic to the language, integral to the language.
As in how we hear it, how we take it in?
Absolutely. Our tendency to find chimes in the language is intrinsic to us and to it. And you've only got to look at even television advertising. I'm sure 50% of television ads use rhyme. At the base of hip-hop, rap music, there may be other things coming into play, and they may not always be so attractive. But one thing that's certainly there, and something to be said in its favour, is that there is an engagement with language and with rhyme.
What does winning the Pulitzer mean for you?
Well, it's a huge honour. It's wonderful. I mean, I guess it's perhaps the great American prize. I had no idea that I was even eligible for it, though I am a US citizen. The fact is that where I am now is where I was a month ago, which is, however cliche-ridden it might seem, facing the blank page and probably finding it as difficult, if maybe even slightly more difficult, to keep on going. But the hope is that one of these days that something really exciting will happen and something really clear will happen.
Really exciting like what?
That an absolutely stunning poem will come down the pike.
Well, Paul Muldoon, thank you for talking to us, and again, congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Thank you.